Hello and welcome to a special horror of Netflix. We haven't ran out of films to review, but me and Alan have had a discussion for some time. Obviously, Alan is our resident anime boffin. Boffin in the academic sense, not in the boffins from Star Wars that all died. Alan's a resident anime expert, and we're going to be looking at a show that me and Alan... I remember actually seeing it on Netflix, and I watched a bit of it, and I felt there was a lot of horror elements in it, and we discussed it, and we thought there definitely was horror in it, and lo and behold, it turns up in the horror section of Netflix.
Yeah.
Now, I've got this jacket on as a kind of safety precaution, and at any point we go too anime today, I'm here to kind of pull us out of it, Matrix style. So I'll let it over to you to begin with. Them.
Well, I like to think you're also showing solidarity with our brothers at Railtrack.
That's right. Let's unionise, guys.
RMT. But Attack on Titan, if you hadn't already guessed that's what we're going to be talking about today, is kind of inescapable at the moment, I almost want to say. It's a dark fantasy series set in this kind of quasi-19th century Middle Europa kind of setting about a walled city containing what are possibly the last remnants of humanity, being constantly attacked by these giant lumbering ogre-type monsters that they dubbed the Titans. Set up to defend against this are teams of... for some reason I would say tiny little people as if they're all about this high, but regular-sized people who are tiny in comparison to the Titans, who attack them using a complicated system of...
bullshit.
Yes.
Flying ropes and...
compressed air-powered ropes and pulleys that they refer to as maneuver gear.
That's it. Using anime.
Yes, using anime. I keep wanting to see like a scene where they try to trip the Titans by swinging around them. And to my knowledge, that still hasn't happened yet. But I mean, how did you first come to this one, Callum? I mean, it's
a weird one. I mean, obviously, again, I'd heard Attack on Titan, and I think there's a lot of stigma with a lot of anime shows where they just seem to get like pushed down your throat. And I say this as an outsider. I mean, I've maybe only watched a handful of one, and I'm kind of anime light, like you know, Cowboy Bebop and stuff, which you can almost look past the anime stuff because they not I'm saying that like it's a big bad thing, but it's just that you can look past stigma.
Dirty anime.
It's like you don't really define it as that. It's like a self-contained. It's just that's just the medium it's presented to you in. But yeah, it's an interesting show from the point of view that, like I said, I've seen it everywhere, and I was kind of like. I don't know what to do, and I'd finished watching Space Dandy, who was from the makers of Cowboy Bebop. Quite enjoyed that, so I thought, fuck it, it's on Netflix. I'm paying for it anyway.
Might as well.
So I started watching it, and I was really kind of brought in. And the first episode's really quite impactful, and it's very, very intense. And from the get go, it's very kind of uncompromising as well. What's interesting about it is the kind of bad guys, so to speak, in this, the kind of antagonists, these Titans are modelled on humans, but they're strange in the sense that they've got this completely like blank emotional slate. They seem completely, you know, ambivalent and completely and utterly ignorant to what they're doing, but at the same time they're obviously completely aware of what they're doing, and they're really predatory, and they're kind of chasing people down, and they've got this kind of quite of course they eat people, they've got this kind of like, you know, this really kind of at the same time dead but also emotive smile. They're really hard to smile. Did you ever see they're based on drunk people?
Yeah, supposedly they were based on drunk people that the original author and artist just saw wandering about in the streets, and you do kind of get that. There's one in particular, I think the one that has a beard that just has this amazing kind of, I don't know how you even describe the expression in his face. It's somewhere between kind of benign amusement and creepy pedophile kind of level look about him. You know?
There's a really strange thing about them. But anyway, the kind of interesting thing about the show is that they're kind of brought in, and it's never one of these shows where you get to the point where it's like, alright, they work out how to defeat them, and after that it's kind of plain sailing. Even when they kind of know the weak spots, there's never a point where things are going easy for them. And you know, some of the points where people are getting killed by themselves are generally quite horrific because they're completely they've got no remorse or anything. But I think there's something that was the thing for me from the horror aspect anyway, was the just that kind of strange design of them where they are kind of human-esque but at the same time
there's something really unsettling about them just to see them even. I don't know what it is exactly. I think it's something because they're almost human but not quite, and it's also the fact that there's something strangely benign about most of them in that they're just this kind of force of nature, and I think that makes them kind of all the more unsettling for it.
Do you think it sets off the uncanny valley?
I think there is a little bit of that actually, yeah. There's something kind of almost human but just not quite, and I think that is exactly perhaps what makes them as kind of weird a presence as they are in it.
Yeah, I think there's certain bits that are difficult to go into it because it'll ruin later bits of it.
It does rely a lot on twists.
But with the kind of Titans being the way they are and the designs, I think there are actually very impactful horror monsters now. And I said monsters again. That's a terrible thing I've got. It's almost like a spasm. But what's interesting is they've now made a live action version of it.
Yes.
Now initially I'd seen videos that looked like they've made them look like kind of like classic kaiju, like Godzilla type stuff, but it seems that they have actually made them look like the standard Titans, but I'm not sure how well that'll transition away from.
It'll be interesting to see how that happens. I'm trying to reserve as much judgment on that as I can until it actually comes out. I mean, I think it's going to be quite a different kettle of fish from the series. They seem to have moved the setting a little bit forward, I guess, because at least some of the concept
it looked quite
pictures,
contemporary from what I saw.
Yeah, I mean, there's at least one of the characters kicking about with a rocket launcher.
Potentially for budgetary concerns, rather than building like an old, kind of medieval type stuff. It's probably easier just to do it down Tokyo High Street.
I think it's that same island that they used for Skyfall. The deserted city, if I remember right. Like, I can't remember the name of it offhand, but
it's quite an interesting location. Then
yeah.
It's interesting from the point of view where. Obviously, like you're saying, they've got like this last setup of people.
Yeah.
And in terms of how it's set up, normally in anime, you're not, without meaning to sound racist, you're not always sure of the kind of ethnic background of some of the characters. Whereas this, I believe, there's only one Japanese person left. In this, the girl.
Most of the cast do have very European-sounding names. Apart from, they do make kind of a thing of it in that. The heroine of it, Mikasa, is supposedly the last Asian female left at this point.
Not the last samurai, starring Tom Cruise, unfortunately. But so interesting thing, and it also came out of us having that discussion of how many horror animes there are.
That's a good point, yeah.
Which you think they're pretty thin on the ground.
This is something that's hotly debated. I mean, I think there are a lot of shows that have horror elements, but it's very difficult to pin down things that you would definitely point to and say that is beyond a doubt a horror film or series in the way that we would get things on the horror section of Netflix, for example.
But I think it's definitely worth throwing this one's hat in the ring.
Absolutely,
anyway, as being a horror product, and it's interesting from the point of view that. There's real, as we said, horror overtones in it. It's very, very brutal at some point, and as we said earlier as well, it's very uncompromising. So I think if it's something you've got Netflix anyway, and you're looking to get into an anime series, it's definitely got to be one of the stronger animes I would say on Netflix.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that this one, perhaps what makes it so successful is that in a way it's kind of the ideal show for its time. I mean, I think it does enough to both bring in the casual viewer and also does enough to kind of stir up the existing old guard as well. I mean, I think, as I say, it is kind of inescapable. Even if you're watching this now, there's a fair chance you've seen it, but if somehow you haven't, then it's absolutely worth checking out.
I think there's something like 26 episodes, and there's not going to be another one until 2016 or something.
Yeah, I think it's next year for the second season. So.
And I believe, strangely enough, they're condensing the episodes into films.
Yeah, that's quite a common practice with anime, that they do like recap films. I think it really dates back to the time when home recording equipment wasn't as prevalent as it is now. And if you wanted something, like if there was a new series coming out, you hadn't seen the old one, they'd do like a compilation film for you so that you could get the story without going through 100 odd episodes.
That's nice of them.
Whatever. Yeah. A lot of them are crap, I should say.
Okay.
But,
cut out all the major story details. And
there is a lot of that. Some of them are very good, but Could go either way. Might be okay, might not be okay. Might have 20% new footage, might have 0.
That's right, yeah. All right, okay. Well, definitely, I would say that this is worth checking out. Obviously,
Absolutely.
like we said, a slightly more unconventional choice from us, but
Yeah.
I think if you're open to anime, not like to tentacles and stuff, just like the entry level stuff, then
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
this would be interesting. And if you do want kind of like a horror experience, it's definitely worth it. And I think it's interesting to see it in a new kind of medium. You know, seeing it in the anime, it's quite a different method of going at it from, you know, if you're getting tired of a lot of kind of conventional horror movies, it's maybe interesting to see this kind of classical setting, but also a different medium as well.
Yeah, it's something to be a bit fresh. Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, I feel safe taking this off. I think I've taken this through water, dangerous water, and we've come out the other side. And hopefully, you guys have enjoyed this. And again, if you've got Netflix, watch it. Or if not, don't. There's a lot of really good stuff on Netflix at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's maybe a little bit working against us because we're calling it the horror of Netflix, but should also point out that it's also available free to air legally through a streaming site called Crunchyroll. So there you go.
We didn't hear from us. Also, The Omen just got added to horror Netflix, which I believe may be something worth investigating.
Yes. Might I say that is a pane in the glass? Sorry, that was the worst.
I know, I probably should have kept my jacket on and said that.
Yeah.
Goodbye!
Goodbye.